Alright, in this parable, I'm going to give a little bit of history beforehand. In 1580, King Felipe II of Spain entered Lisbon, the capital of Portugal, and he became King Felipe I of Portugal. He did not annex Portugal, he just made Portugal part of the Spanish Union, because Spain was a union of two jurisdictions, the crown of Aragon or Catalonia and the crown of Castile and Leon. And both crowns consist of small countries, small kingdoms, and Portugal became part of that union. They remained with their own Portuguese institutions, Portuguese language. They were not part of Spain. Now, the Portuguese Empire also became part of Spanish jurisdiction. This remained like this for 60 years. During those 60 years, Spain was ruled by the Austrian Habsburg dynasty. Well, after the separation from Portugal from the Spanish Union, well, not much really changed in the Portuguese Empire, because the Portuguese could retain their own local laws and regulations under Spanish supervision. But then you had the French Bourbon dynasty that took over Spain and the Spanish Empire. And in South America there was this country that the Spanish established called Buenos Aires. You had the city Buenos Aires and you had the country Buenos Aires that was a colony to Spain. The country Buenos Aires, well, it was like a ghetto, because all the trade of South America, the Spanish trade had to happen through Peru and Panama. Why didn't the Spanish just boost the kingdom of Buenos Aires, which bordered Portuguese America or Brazil? That would have been far better. Well, eventually they did that. And before they did it, they agreed with the Portuguese queen in, I believe it was in the 1760s, that the province of Montevideo, or what they call Uruguay, would become Spanish possession. So the Portuguese in the south, that means near Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, they were upset that they lost the province of Montevideo, which they called the colony of Sacramento in Portuguese. But anyway, Montevideo became part of the Kingdom of Buenos Aires. And in 1777, the Kingdom of Charcas, which what we today call Bolivia, and I believe also parts of Paraguay, and the Kingdom of Buenos Aires, which is the rest, including what today call Uruguay and Patagonia, those two countries were placed under the jurisdiction of a viceroy in Buenos Aires. So the viceroyalty of Rio de la Plata came into existence. And the viceroyalty of Rio de la Plata, sometimes called the viceroyalty of Buenos Aires, meant they boosted the economy of South America under the Spanish part. And the people living in the province of Montevideo or Uruguay, they benefited from it. But near the border with Brazil, there was this town, the Spanish town, that often traded with the Portuguese that lived across the border. Well, one day there were robbers from Chile that came to that town. They were just going around looting. That's what they did. They were thieves. They were also burglars. They were criminals, looting here and there. Let's say that Juan is the leader of the pack, and Juan arrives in the town near the Portuguese border. I say Portuguese because Brazil was part of Portugal then. So when they arrive in the town, they are confounded, because they see that the town is I don't want to say decay, but the people are sad in that town. But the thieves are looking around and they see these people have a lot of fertile land around them. The land is so fertile that even wild berries and wild fruits, man, they grow very fast. They lived in relative expensive houses. And then Juan, the leader of the pack, discuss the matter with his partners in crime, and they're thinking, ¿Qué pasa? They're Spanish. What's going on? These people live in a very fertile region. They have big houses. So obviously they're wealthy, but people are so sad. Then Juan decides, you know what? Let us just remain in this town as guests before we loot here. And while being in town, they hear that they were about to lose their farms. They were about to become homeless because they haven't produced enough crops, and because of that, well, the Spanish authorities were about to confiscate their properties and sell them to others. They even petitioned to get some water supply so that the Spanish would construct a structure to supply water to their land. And they also requested or petitioned for extra roads, which were declined. So the people living there, well, they were a bit sad. They didn't know when it would happen, but soon, one day, suddenly they would lose everything. And Juan heard all of this, and Juan began to think, hold on a minute. Juan remembered that when he was a small kid, the people in Chile rejoiced when the province of Montevideo became Spanish. He could remember it. And as a kid, he visited Montevideo, the province, and remembered very well that he passed by that town. The town still had the Portuguese flag, the colonial flag of Portugal over there, even though they were now under Spanish rule. And it was already 2 years after the Treaty of Madrid was signed in Europe. But still, the changes were not implemented fully in the province of Montevideo. That was 2 years after the ratification. He was just a small kid then. Now, that's already 20 years ago, and he's now in his late 30s. And he looks at the people in that town, and he found out that the people still submitted their, they still submitted their official documents in Portuguese to Montevideo. The capital of the province was also called Montevideo. And then Juan was thinking, why are you submitting your documents in Portuguese? You're part of the Kingdom of Buenos Aires, which is one of the most wealthiest Spanish kingdoms in South America. And Juan figured out something's very wrong here. And then Juan realized what was wrong. That area, after Portugal conceded it to Spain, many of the Portuguese that had businesses over there had to give them up. So they lost a lot. And those Portuguese families, they were very pissed off, they were very angry. So they came up with a plan. Because they knew that Buenos Aires was far removed from the border, they managed to trick the people living in the province of Montevideo that they still had to follow the rules and regulations that Spain enforced between 1580 and 1640. Now they were in this like in 1789 by now. Spain a few years earlier got a new flag. That red yellow flag was placed everywhere. But here's the thing. That old regulation that Spain had of the 1600s, that was long gone because there was a new dynasty, and the dynasty that came, Bourbon dynasty, enforced the Bourbon reforms. But the Portuguese in the Americas, they still held on to the regulations that Spain came up with, even though we were not even part of the Spanish Empire anymore, officially. But they got used to it, and those that lived in the province of Montevideo, they held on to it also. But after Montevideo became Spanish and Spain enforced the Bourbon reforms and their new economic policy, many people didn't get that message. So the Portuguese colonists had to move to Brazil. They could still earn extra income from the province of Montevideo even though they weren't there, though they were not even allowed to conduct business over there. Because everyone that had wanted to conduct business in the province of Montevideo had to be registered in Buenos Aires and had to receive approval from the Spanish government. So that's how it went. Those Portuguese settlers, though because the communication in news messages was slow, they spread fake news in the province of Montevideo, and the fake news gave the impression that Buenos Aires was not interested in investing in Montevideo, and that the Portuguese were still the dominant power over there. That's what the people there thought, in the north at least. So that's why they thought, okay, if those Spain took over, still the Portuguese are the ones running the things here, so we can better send our applications and our documents in Portuguese. And that's how those Portuguese conmen managed to put them in fright and fear, threaten them to pay extra money, charge them things they shouldn't charge them, and the population was even aware of it. They were not aware of it. It was that Juan, that criminal that passed by, that realized, hold on a minute, something's not right here. And Juan saw through the deception. So Juan, if he was a criminal, he went to Montevideo, where the Spanish governor lived, and he informed the Spanish governor of the con that was going on. And the Spanish governor told him, I know about it. I arrived here over a year ago, and there are many con men from Brazil over here pretending to be politicians under the Spanish government, and they're conning the people. So that was a parable. It's been a long parable, okay, but I gave this long parable with something I want to teach you here. Juan was a criminal. He was a burglar, okay? He was a thief, plain. He, as a thief, saw through deception far quicker than the people that grew up under it. Because Juan was thinking, hold on a minute, how can these people communicate with authorities in Portuguese while they live under Spanish rule? And how can these people not receive what they need, like extra supply for water, extra roads, while Buenos Aires is one of the richest countries in South America? The export to Spain was enormous. The export to Spain increased by 700% since 1777. So despite the economic boom, these people in the north of Montevideo, they almost lived as if they lived in an apocalypse, as if they were in some kind of apocalyptic time frame, as if things were about to end. They were living in this gloom and doom. And Juan was thinking, this ain't right. So let me tell you, just like that Juan, there are times false teachers see things far better and much quicker than you do. I'm not praising false teachers here, don't get me wrong here, okay? But false teachers often see through deception far better than many others. It can be that you have this guru that teaches you all kinds of mysticism from Asia. He claims to follow Christ, but his Christ is an ascended master. His Christ is not the real Christ. But this false teacher, even though he's deceived, thinking he's in agreement with Christ while he's really in paganism, he goes online and he hears many of the teachings of mainstream churches, and even though he's deceived, he's thinking, a lot of men, this doesn't add up. How come they came, Christ died in their place and he rose again? And Christ said, let me say, in the New Testament says that Christ, who was rich, became poor, so we become rich through his poverty. And then the false teacher thinks, hold on a minute, If Christ became poor for their sake so they would become rich through him, then why are those teachers telling people that during this lifetime you just have to suffer, suck it up, and only when you die and go to heaven things will get better? The false teacher was thinking, hold on a minute, this doesn't add up. Just like that Juan in that parable I give unto you, this false teacher had more discernment than the people that went to those churches. He saw the deception immediately. And he wasn't even born again. He didn't even have the Holy Spirit. Now look, I'm not telling you to open your heart and your mind to false teachers, no. But there are times false teachers reveal things that are important. And here's the thing, Satan is successful in using false teachers because often the things people need to hear, false teachers mention them. And when false teachers mention them, people get hooked. People get these aha moments. They get deeply rejoiced because they finally hear something that's true. So what happens now? They get attached to that teacher. And now Satan guards them, and Satan now can lead them astray. That's why it's important for you to look at the bigger picture yourself. That's why it's important for you to agree with Christ yourself and to be alert yourself and not rely on others. Just want to point it out to you, sometimes false teachers notice things far better than you do. And here's the thing, sometimes strangers out there who are unbelievers, who don't know anything about the spiritual world, can notice things about you that you don't. It can be that you enter a place and people tend to become frightened as if they notice some presence with you. You don't notice anything. Strangers do. It can be that you have those gangsters, those thugs in a community. They often rouse people, but when you enter in, they're gone. And you don't notice as others do. Or it can be that everything's going well for you, except, for example, one thing that keeps hindering you. It can be that you applied for 60 jobs, but you keep getting rejected. And then you arrive at some office where they help people get a job, and the one behind the desk, who's an atheist, looks at you, looks at your resume, and thinks, hold on a minute, how come you are not invited to job interviews? You look professional, you talk in a professional manner. Even though he's an atheist, he knows something doesn't add up. And indeed, though to negative meditation of others, people are transferring heaviness onto you, and this affects your circumstances. So people, to collective witchcraft is binding you. That's what's going on. Now the atheist is aware of all of that, but in that sense, something doesn't add up. That's why it's important from time to time to pay attention to what people are saying. Not because you're going to agree with them, not because what they're saying has to be valuable, but sometimes even false teachers or people that are deceived can notice things that you need to notice. Just something I want to point out there. Well, that's it for now. Agree with Christ and be at peace.